if you understand content, the name of the game on social media is to get people want to make content about them versus making it about the person they're trying to attract. The best piece of advice I could give you is say this, okay, well, look, the easiest way to get people to engage with content is to ask. But I really believe that people today, they've made social media so difficult that they kind of miss the mark on it. And I always think of whenever I post something, it's like, well, what do I want someone to do with this? Do I want them to like it? Do I want them to comment? Do I want them to share it? But I have to be specific in what I tell them to do with it. If you just learned how to get engagement on social media is kind of your first place to start. The easiest way to get engagement is just to ask.
Welcome, Driven Doc Nation, to another great episode of In the Blue, where I get to bring to you some of my favorite guests who are of the same mindset, the driven mindset, because this is what it's all about, right? Building a network, incredible community to help you build these incredible practices that fuel your dream life. And on our episode today, I've got an incredible guest, Ewell, who comes to us from SoCal. He is a business and marketing coach extraordinaire who has also developed the VIP weight loss system, which is now being used in so many chiropractic practices and other providers who are seeing dramatic results with their patients. But more importantly, it's profitable. It's actually driving the bottom line, which we know that's the only things I bring to you guys, which are profitable models, because we have to have profits to fuel our business, which allows us to scale our impact and actually change more lives. And Jesse, welcome to the show. And I know this is what you are so passionate about, is changing lives. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks so much, Cory. I really appreciate it.
I started seeing some of your stuff through some of our members that we share, and they've implemented your weight loss program into their practices and have had incredible results. But what really caught my eye was the connection between how you're marketing this. And we've looked at so many models with how to acquire a new patient,
Right.
About measuring data, new patient acquisition costs, new patient start costs, like we're all about the numbers. And what really impressed me was how well you've mastered the engagement through social media, like using social media platforms. And I would love to know the story. Like, how did you get here? Like, where did you come from? How did you get to the point where you've really been able to now create incredible engagement on social media without paid traffic, like just the free organic content?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I won't go way back, but like, I'll give you a little bit of a glimpse. So like, I was an athlete growing up. My biggest thing was always working on growth, trying to improve myself, like being the best I could be. And so I feel like, I played college football. I, was a Golden Gloves amateur boxer. So I've done a lot of sports, and I feel like when I got into business, I first started as a personal trainer. This is probably back in like early 2000s, when literally to get people to sign up for training back then, it felt like you had to put people in a headlock just to get them to do it. And, as that progressed, I started my own training facility in a little 2,000 square foot space. And then as I kind of grew that and grew out of like, hey, I'm going to be a trainer the rest of my life and just train people one-on-one, I started to see different models of business and like how things could be done. And as I began to grow my training facilities and expanded even into 2 locations, it got me to kind of like see, okay, like I'm not just this little like mom and pop business anymore. I'm actually like a CEO of this company, and my responsibility is to actually make my trainers busy. It's not just to train people anymore. And so my mind started to kind of shift, I think in around like early 2012, 2013, when social media started to kind of, it started to kind of become more relevant and more popular. Okay. But the thing is like, I was kind of afraid to post content, back then. And like, I wasn't really sure. It's like, okay, well, what do I share and how do I share it? And so as I began to kind of test that out, I met mentors along the way where, they're like on camera, in your face, kind of all the time. And I'm like, man, I don't know if I could ever do that. But I got challenged. This is probably, 2014. I got challenged to start shooting videos on my social media. And I ended up doing like this 90-day challenge of videos every day for 90 days. Well, I was like, I don't know if I want to stop, because I feel like if I stop, it's kind of like stopping working out. You got to restart over and it's going to be harder. And so I remember on day one of doing a challenge, my mentor said, "You sound like a drunk Canadian when you're doing the video." And I think I said about 500 times in that one video. And by day 90, he actually complimented me and said, like, I think you only said you said once or twice in that like 8 to 10 minute video. And it kind of made me realize that, like, man, like there's this like thing we used to say, it's called embrace the suck, right? But it's like most people aren't willing to do that video on day 1, 2, or 3. They never actually get to day 90 to see the growth that they had. And I think I made it to 129 days straight of videos. And it wasn't that people weren't really like, "Oh, your videos are awesome," but they're like, "Dude, I'm seeing you every day on video." And I'm seeing, like, they weren't really saying anything about what I said. They were just like, "That's awesome. Like, keep doing that. I love what you say." But like most of them would never comment. They'd never say anything on my videos, but like they would always say something to me in person. And it got me to kind of be like, wow, that's crazy. For every one person that comments, there's 10 or 15 behind them that aren't commenting, that aren't liking, they're just watching.
Yeah.
And so it kind of made me realize how important that organic side of business is. And then at the same time, I was running, Facebook ads for like a 6-week challenge. And we'd been running them for a long time. And it started to get really competitive where people would copy what you were doing. And I really was like, man, I need to learn something different. And that's kind of how I stumbled into like an organic marketing system. So we would run ads at our 6-week challenge. And then I would use organic marketing on how to close like high ticket, personal training programs.
Yeah.
And so the cool thing is like everybody was copying me and on the 6-week challenge. So then we changed to 42-day, then we changed the name to something else, and then everybody else would do it. But what they didn't know what we were doing was the organic stuff on our personal profile, because they couldn't figure out what we were doing, because they could only see, content, and most of them weren't friends with me. So like they were just kind of limited to what they could do. And so that's really how I began to learn organic marketing. And that kind of took my brick and mortar businesses from, I think we were doing about $1.1 to $1.2 million a year. It took us up to, $2 million just in learning that system and being able to leverage. I still believed in, running Facebook ads, but I really feel like you're almost running ads at a different population than you would be organic, because it's much more relationship driven versus just cold traffic. And if you guys are already doing, Facebook ads, like I'm not saying it's an either or play. It's like you need to learn both, because both of them are going to be beneficial to what you're doing.
Yeah, we're totally in alignment there. Break down for me for like a new doc, right? That or even a doc that's been around for a while, but they're not really utilizing social media.
Yeah.
Break down like a successful post for me. What are the components? If there was a checklist, could you put one out real quick for me?
Yeah. I mean, let's say this. There's different types of posts and there's different purposes for posts.
Yeah.
So most people think posting content is marketing. I actually only think that's maybe about 15 to 20% of your marketing. Okay, so if you understand content, the name of the game on social media is to get people to engage with your content. That means that if you're looking at a hierarchy of an algorithm, sharing content is number one, commenting on content is number two, hearting or loving a piece of content is number three, and liking is number four. So that means that you have to be very strategic at what you ask your audience to do with your content. So it's kind of like Simon Says. Okay. So, a big thing nowadays is like, people want to make content about them versus making it about the person they're trying to attract. And so the best piece of advice I could give you is say this. Okay, well, look, the easiest way to get people to engage with content is to ask questions. Okay, because it's really easy. If I'm in a room of like 100 people and I ask a question, everybody's going to want to interact and engage with that, right? Just because we made it easy. But I really believe that people today, they've made social media so difficult that they kind of missed the mark on it. And I always think of whenever I post something, it's like, well, what do I want someone to do with this? Do I want them to like it? Do I want them to comment? Do I want them to share it? But I have to be specific in what I tell them to do with it. Okay. So kind of the newer beginner, if I'm on social media, haven't done anything, start asking questions. Okay. That's the easiest way. Get people to engage. Ask your audience what they want. Ask questions to find out what your audience likes to engage with or doesn't. And, here's the other thing is, what if you, instead of thinking like, I got to sign somebody up from my piece of content, what if you just thought like, hey, every piece of content is a test to know what's working, what's not working, and how I can improve it. And I think when people start changing the mindset of, their content, they start changing the way they think about social media. And, the cool thing is this, if you're a chiropractor, most chiropractors have a TV in their office like I have behind me. The problem with that TV is nobody's looking at it anymore. They're looking at their phone. If you're not relevant in front of your clients on your phone, they're not going to know what services you have to offer. And I think the number one thing I see with chiropractors is they're offering a lot of niche services in their clinic, but none of their clients know that they have them there because they put them all on their TV instead of, on social media.
Mm-hmm.
So back to a starting point is just saying like, look, if you just learned how to get engagement on social media is kind of your first place to start. The easiest way to get engagement is just to ask questions.
Cool. So you're really just trying to develop a relationship with your audiences.
Well, remember is like, I ask you a question, you answer, it drives conversation.
Right.
And that's all, that's what really marketing is like, hey, can I get someone to move where they're currently at to one step closer to where I want them to be?
Yeah.
Okay, but if I don't establish a relationship with you, you're not going to have a conversation with me.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest mistake a lot of our docs make is they have a relationship with the patient as long as it's within these four walls. But outside of those walls, there's no conversation that continues on. And if the patient doesn't return into those four walls, there is no conversation. And so what kind of frequency are you recommending that these doctors are engaging with their social media content? Is it weekly, a couple times a week?
I mean, I would say this, like, so what's changed in like the last 4 years, 5 years is like, obviously we got away from, COVID, right? And what that did is brought everybody on social media. People are paying less attention to the news than ever. They're now on social media for the news. So the average person today is getting on social media 20 to 25 times a day. The person who's going to end up buying from you is the person who's ever the most relevant in front of them. So if me and you are a local doctor and we have, I'm doing organic marketing, you're doing maybe no marketing, you're relying on referrals, right? Because of the way I'm marketing, I'm going to drive more people into my business, not because I'm a better doctor, but because I'm a better marketer, and I'm going to be more relevant to the clients, right? And so I'm going to be more top of mind. That means that every time that client gets on social media, if I understand how it works, they're going to see me multiple times a day, and they may never see you ever, but like, you're a better doctor, but it doesn't matter because nobody knows who you are.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what's changed in the landscape. So here's what I would say. Whether you post 3 days a week, 5 days a week, or 7 days a week, just be consistent with whatever it is.
Nice.
I would highly recommend that you do 5 days a week to be consistent, because I think it's harder. I think it's harder to go to the gym, 3 days a week than it is just to go like 5 or 6 and say like, hey, this is part of my lifestyle. So I really believe that marketing, if it's part of your business lifestyle, it's a lot harder to stop doing than it is to kind of like, do a couple times a week or maybe once a week. You know what I mean? Like, it's harder to work out once a week than it is to go to the gym 6 days a week.
I 100% agree. I mean, I don't quite have your physique, but I stay pretty regular in my fitness routine, and I find the days that I have to force myself to rest because I need that recovery day is a harder day for me than my normal routine of just getting up and working out. So it's
Right.
100% with you. What is your kind of schedule look like? Do you take time to do your content planning, and then you have block time that this is your content creation? Like, walk me through a little bit on how you are doing it. How do you create that habit that's now an unbreakable habit for you?
Yeah, I mean, usually once a week, I kind of set up my content for the week. The thing I'll say with content is like, I always begin with the end in mind. So what's the end of where I want to take somebody by the end of the week? And then I reverse engineer my content from there. So we're talking about, Sundays, kind of the beginning of the week. I would start more with like, where do I want people to be by Friday or Saturday? And then I reverse engineer my content from there. Almost like we're walking them step by step down a path, and that path is going to take them to an opportunity to raise their hand to possibly work with us, or give them an opportunity to do something, right?
Yeah.
And so Sundays I do that. Like, I just literally, before I did this, I had somebody come over to my office and we just did like 8 reels in about 30 minutes. And that's kind of like my content as far as that goes. And then, obviously, you have other content like stories, you have other content for your profile, other content on other platforms. So I try to kind of manage it. One is once a week, I'll usually do reels and do more video-based content where I kind of map it out. And then once a week on Sunday, I'll usually map out my whole content for the week. And so I probably spend, I'd say hour and a half on content a week and kind of bash it all out and then get it ready to go.
Nice. Yeah, with a lot of these doctors, they're like, how do I have time for that? I'm seeing patients, I'm paying payroll, I'm, they're wearing basically all the hats in the practice. In our community, we talk about this evolution ladder. Like, we're moving, just like you went from running your training gyms or training gym, doing the training, and then you moved to bringing in trainers. We call that the leader phase, where they're plugging in providers. And I think this is such an important point that you're making, which is the duty of the leader is to fill their providers' schedules, right? To make sure they're busy, because if they're not busy, we're not producing cash flow.
Well, let me say this, because I feel like the training business is a lot like chiropractic. Is like, if you're bringing in, most chiropractors get frustrated with an associate because they're not good at bringing in clients. But I'm like, well, if they were good at it, they'd go start their own business. Sure. So you need to decide what type of associate do you want? Because it's the same thing for me. When I would bring in trainers, I would get upset if that trainer brought in a lot of people and then was like, hey, I'm going to go start my own business. But like, that was ultimately what they wanted to be able to do versus having a trainer come in and be like, I just want clients. I don't want to have to worry about talking about money. I don't want to have to worry about any of those things. And once I realized that that was actually the person I was looking for, I was kind of like, you know what? You don't ever have to talk about money. You don't have to worry about getting any clients. You can just take care of your people. If you get some referrals from them, that's awesome. But all you have to do is just worry about showing up and training that client. Once I understood that, I could focus 100% of my attention on marketing, and I didn't have to worry about anything else anymore.
Yeah. This is an interesting kind of question and a discussion I have with a lot of our expander doctors, and that is, when you look at all of your CEO duties, what would you say is at that top of the list that when you start your week, you make sure this is blocked for you?
I mean, I believe that marketing and sales is the number one thing that every business owner should be focused on in their business, because without those two things, it's the number one struggle that they all have, most of them have, right? If you said, okay, let's put 100 doctors in a room, let's put 100 trainers in the room, they're all going to have, the majority of them are going to have the same problem. Marketing first, and then maybe sales second.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what industry you're in.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I
So,
mean, any CEO of any business, if those two things are not firing, nothing else really matters, right?
and even if I'm bad at it, I still got people coming in to be able to pay to have people help me with it. Where if I don't have anybody coming in, now I've kind of pigeonholed myself into a place where I can't even afford to get help. And that's one of the worst positions that we can put ourselves in, is not to be able to afford to pay people to help us.
Yeah, I agree. Do you have, when we talk about the goal of a post, right? There's different kinds of posts, but obviously engagement, shares, likes. Is there a post that like set a record for you? Like, was the most engaging post? Do you remember what that was? What kind of content piece it was? What did you do like that made it so viral? Can you share any of that with us?
Well, let me say this, like, the posts that will always get the most engagement are political posts, posts that maybe talk about race or religion. And I don't really recommend people post on those things unless, you're a seasoned person. Here's what I would say. The reason why I like engagement posts is because you can start with a broader audience. So like, if you notice your engagement is down, start asking something ask a question about a broader audience. So I could say something like, maybe I'm a chiropractor and I notice my engagement is down. Maybe I might say something like, hey, what's the one habit, you do every day? That kind of opens it up to more of my audience can engage with it. Or I might say something like, hey, what's the third picture on your camera roll? Everybody can engage with that. But if I start asking like, hey, what do you typically do for like low back pain? I'm kind of limiting myself on how many people are going to respond. And so what I would say is this: not all, like, even if I got a post where it had hundreds of comments, it doesn't necessarily mean it's got hundreds of comments from my niche. It just has 100 comments from, my active audience.
Yeah.
So it's good for you as a chiropractor, health professional, to learn that, like, hey, engagement posts are great and doing them is great and getting that engagement is great, but it's only really kind of like step one. You got to move beyond that and start putting more relevant content out. And I'll give you a couple ideas on what that is. So if I looked at your Facebook profile and I scanned through it, and a couple things I would want to know: who's the ideal person you're working with? What do they look like? And what problems do they have? Okay. So if I was scanning through somebody's profile, I'm going to look through, is their clientele like 40 to 50 years old, female? Are you talking about, back pain? Are you talking about some of the problems people have in that age group and then some of the results you've helped them get? I'm going to start scanning through your profile and seeing that person, because that's ultimately what you're trying to drive people to, right? And I can tell you this, that a lot of times I'll scan through people's profiles and do an audit, and I won't see any of that stuff. And I'm like, well, who's your ideal client? And they start telling me, but I'm like, well, where are they at? Because I'm a marketer. Your average client has no clue about marketing, but we still can't see your person on your profile. And that's one of the biggest issues.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes total sense. What have you seen? Are there some changes in the algorithms that our audience needs to be aware of that they should avoid versus what's something they should do? Have you seen any changes like that as social media is developing?
Here's what I'll say. Okay. So I've been doing this since like 2000, we'll just say 2015.
Mm-hmm.
The algorithm always changes, but it doesn't. Okay. So like what that means is like the algorithm's always changing, but it's typically not the algorithm in the way that people think, right? So it's like, well, Facebook's, limiting my algorithm. It's like, no, your content's terrible and not connecting with your audience. So the algorithm has kind of shifted from more like, it's more AI driven now, where, 4 or 5 years ago, that wasn't even like a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So like, that's the biggest thing that shifted, but likes, comments, shares, engagement, that's not changed. Yeah. It's still the same, right? Here's what I'll say. Use the tools that Facebook thinks is the most relevant, or the platform you're on is most relevant. So what's some new things that Facebook's doing now that they maybe weren't doing a couple of years ago? Reels is a big one, right? And so Reels, if you utilize like the platform you're on, if you utilize their tools, they're going to reward you. Okay. So if I said, okay, Reels are probably one of the newest things on Facebook, not that they're super new, but they borrow Reels from Instagram and they borrow Reels from TikTok to fill up their Reels, right? So that means they don't have enough. So they're going to these other platforms to pull them over, and you probably see it. So if that's true, then you want to use Reels as like a huge part of your marketing on Facebook, because Facebook's borrowing it from Instagram and TikTok. And so your stuff is automatically going to be seen more. Now, the cool thing about Reels is people don't have to be friends with you to see it. So if you have good Reels, then it'll be shown in your community. And the other thing is, most of the people you're working with are probably brick and mortar. So that means that in that small area of town you live in, there's probably not a lot of other chiropractors doing Reels and doing short form video. So by you doing that, you're going to be more prevalent in the marketplace.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. That's great suggestions. Let's shift a little bit and give me a little idea, like what sets this VIP weight loss system apart from other weight loss systems that we see in the marketplace?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of had the pleasure of working with a lot of people that are doing a lot of the other weight loss systems. I won't really say names because I just, I look at them, I study them, and I'm like, okay, that's my background. Here's what I'll say. Ours, I don't know any other weight loss system where you can make $20,000 to $40,000 consistently every month. I don't know any other weight loss system that within a certain amount of time of getting certified, usually like 30 days, that you can make, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in a launch. And, we consistently do that. We do that for 3 reasons. Number one, we have a done for you nutrition system that's set up through a dietitian who kind of mastered obesity and mastered how like treating patients. So we're addressing gut health, we're addressing liver health, and we're fixing people's metabolism. And those are kind of your three things that are going to hurt people on whether they can't lose weight or they can. We also have a medical provider that oversees, the clients that are eligible for medical, weight loss. I will say this, that, medical weight loss has kind of a bad rap. The problem with that is that it comes from misdiagnosing people and giving them too much peptides. And that's where a lot of your bad rap's coming from. Also, if you're not detoxifying the liver, the gut, and fixing someone's metabolism, just giving them more peptides, not the answer, right? And what's also cool is doing the peptides. A lot of people don't know this, but like doing these weight loss peptides are actually settling down people's addictive patterns and behaviors. So like drinking, eating sugar, overeating food. It's basically cutting out that part of your brain that's triggering those things, which a lot of people do, right? And so it actually helps, curb that appetite for addictive behaviors and things like that. And it's the only thing that does that. There's no supplement, there's no products out there that'll do that same thing. GLP-1 is the only thing that does it. So because people are not addressing those things and addressing nutrition, then it gets a bad rap. But I can tell you this, that we have 600 or 700 clients in our program. Less than 5% have any type of like negative side effects, and most of the time it might be like constipation, and that's a super easy thing to fix. Now, the other part of the VIP weight loss system is sales and marketing. So I do all the sales and marketing, I teach it all, but the cool thing is we're doing it all through social media organically. We're not doing it through paid ads or paid traffic. So we don't ever have to worry about getting shut down. The practitioner never has to worry about not being able to share the results about what their clients are getting. And so the nice thing about that is that every weight loss program I saw out there in the chiropractic space, none of them had an actual marketing system or high ticket sales system that it came with. And if it did, it was through paid ads. And it wasn't very consistent. And it ended up being where a lot of these guys would come to me asking me if I could help them. So I already kind of knew what it was like. Mm-hmm. But having this all together under one complete system, it really allows someone to kind of have almost like a business that's completely different from the chiropractic model, but it's under the same roof. And the great thing about this system is it can be serviced 100% virtual. So it's very scalable. You don't need, I love red lights. I think they're great. I think it's a great added bonus, but like it takes up room. It does bring in revenue, but it's not super scalable unless you have, 3 or 4 beds going at a time.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, chronic disease, it's founded in, obesity. It's founded in cortisol issues. It's founded in insulin resistance and all of these things. So yeah, having some sort of a weight loss program in your practice, I think, is essential if you're really...
Let me say this too. A weight loss client is worth more money than a chiropractic client. And I'm going to explain why. Everybody who needs to lose weight is a candidate for chiropractic care.
Sure.
Not everybody who's a chiropractic patient is a candidate for weight loss.
Sure.
So the typical weight loss client is going to feed your chiropractic clinic as well. And that's what's cool is it's like they didn't come in for chiropractic, but they came in for weight loss, but they stay for chiropractic. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so like, to me, I was just talking about this in one of my reels. I was like, man, chiropractors, people are looking at chiropractors differently now today than they were 4 or 5 years ago, because they were the ones all along saying, hey, these things are not good for you. And now people are like, wow, you've been saying this for the last however many years, and now it's actually coming out that these things are true. So I really think that people are looking to chiropractors for alternative health. And this is a great thing to have, in order to be able to offer that. And it's really set up for all the things, like you said, is like, the markers of inflammation, gut health, liver detoxification, fixing people's metabolism because they're broken. This nutrition plan addresses all those things, and that's kind of the beauty of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Jesse Ewell, great to have you on In the Blue, and thank you for letting us get to know a little bit about you and understand your skill sets and the problems that you're solving and the amazing things that you're bringing to our community. If they want to reach out to you, find you, get more information about the VIP weight loss system, how do they find you, Jess?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on Facebook. My Facebook is Jesse, JESSE EWELL. It's the same thing on Instagram. You can also reach out to me, Jesse, at habitbasedlifestyle.com. I also have Habit Based Lifestyle Podcast, which my man Cory's been on there before. And, you can reach out to me either way. Awesome.
Fantastic. Reach out to him, get more information. Again, Driven Nation, thank you for being driven. Stay driven. If you're a first-time listener to our episodes, please reach out, join our free Facebook group, The Data Driven Practice. We have over 1,000 docs in there now who are just geeking out over running their practices by the numbers. If you don't know your numbers, it's hard to grow your numbers. And so whether you're trying to scale a small business or your empire, you've got to know your numbers. So come join us in the Data Driven Practice free Facebook group. Jesse, again, thank you for being on the show, man. Looking forward to more content coming from you and all the great things that you're doing. Thanks, brother.
Thank you so much.